nonprofit organization, and I'm just going to give you one of the achievements of CMCC. Every year, in April and October, the DEA hosts an event called the Drug Take Back Day, where anyone who has leftover medications, they would come and bring it, dump it in a box. The DEA would take it in a truck, ship it to Florida. One of the reasons for this event is to create awareness about addiction, and so that you don't have a lot of medications left at home that could be misused, could be harmful to kids. With the help of Sister Andrea, Wasat organization was the first organization to have a mosque participate in this event in the history of the United States. And we're now having CMCC taking part in this. Next event is April, and I think registration deadline is February 10th, Sister Andrea. So this is a big deal. You're dealing with one of the most esteemed and elite organizations in the country in an effort to combat addiction. Brother Habib has blessed us with a great presentation and talked about the MashaAllah kit, right? We have a lot of MashaAllah communities as well, because if you talk about addiction, people tell you, oh, not in my community. Sheikh Karim, we have addiction problem in this community. Good. 90% of the imams I ask normally, they say they don't have addiction community. How big is the addiction problem in this country? Tomorrow is the Super Bowl, right? How many people are going to be watching it online on TV? 30 million people, right? Maybe 300 million people. How many people are going to watch it live in the stadium, roughly? Anyone knows? Last year, I had to brag about this. We hosted it in Houston, and the NRG Stadium fits about 75,000 people. We lost. But it's okay, we won the year before. 75,000 people. Imagine if tomorrow there are 75,000 people watching this game and they are all dead. What reaction would you have? That's very horrific. In the year 2017, this is exactly how many people we lost to addiction in this country. A stadium full of people, 75,000 people, majority young people, a lot of energy, a lot of talents. Addiction is a very serious problem, and this is only, by the way, opioids overdose. These are people taking some oxycodone, some heroin, some fentanyl, which is the biggest one, and dying. When we talk about addiction, and again we think, oh, it's not me. It's not like it's always someone else. It's always some other community. And I commend you honestly from the depth of my heart for picking this theme as a topic for your gathering. Because many people are still living in denial. They don't think this problem exists. When in this country, 1 out of 4 have an addiction problem. What is addiction? So we can just agree on a definition. Simply, we have habits. We're creatures of habits, right? We eat because of what? Because it's habit. It's noon time. Let's go get something for lunch. You may not be hungry, right? You're driving by Starbucks. Sure, not so many people at the drive-thru. Let's get a coffee. It's a habit, right? When the habit becomes compulsive, repetitive, and you cannot resist it, even when it is harmful, that becomes addiction. So addiction, any habit that is harmful and you cannot get rid of, in simplistic terms. There is good addiction, but we don't call it good addiction. We don't call it addiction. Examples of good addiction: regular exercise. Addiction to the masjid. Is there such a thing in the Sunnah of the Prophet? Yes. The Prophet ﷺ described some of the people who are going to be protected in the shade of Allah in the Day of Judgment is a man وَقَلْبُهُ رَجُلٌ قَلْبُهُ مُعَلَّقٌ بِالْمَسَاجِدِ. A man whose heart is attached to the mosque, to the masjid. What does that mean? If you miss the masjid, it's like you feel something is missing. This is exactly what addiction. You cannot resist. You have to do it. That's a good addiction. Addiction to dhikr. If you miss your word one day or what you read of the Quran, you feel something is missing. There is a void there. That's a good addiction. The Prophet ﷺ in the beautiful hadith said, how much you have to make dhikr? To what degree? He said, اذكروا الله حتى يقول أو يقال مجنون. Make dhikr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to a point that people think you're insane. What does that mean? You cannot take that habit away. You are so attached to the dhikr of your Lord that you cannot live without it. That is a good addiction. What we're talking about today is enhancing the good addiction in our lives and abandoning the bad addiction. The bad addiction is something harmful you cannot abstain from, you cannot resist, you have that compulsion. And when we talk about addiction, we always think about cocaine, marijuana. Hey, in Texas, marijuana is not legal. So don't export it to us. We want to keep it that way. So we talk about cocaine, heroin, oxycodone, fentanyl. This is the chemical addiction. But addiction goes way beyond drugs. It's behavioral addiction. Just what Dr. Habib has talked about, the tech addiction, addiction to the screen, which is starting as early as few months, because if a kid cries, what's the easiest way to calm them and console them? Hand them an iPad or an iPhone. This is a serious problem that we're going to talk about. We're on the screen now. Excellent. This is the first slide. Good. So, this is a serious problem. We have behavioral addiction, shopping addiction. 6% of the population have shopping addiction. And a lot of people think it's a woman thing. It is not actually. It's a woman and men thing equally. 6% of the population, men and women, equal, addicted to shopping, especially online shopping, compulsive. Things that may be useful or not useful, buy it. Every gadget has to be acquired. Every new phone has to be bought. People go on and stand in line for hours. Like the last version of the iPhone, I think people stayed in line for 18 hours just to get the new cool thing. That's addiction. There is work addiction because people have no other things to do to entertain them, to lift their self-esteem, and they just find work. They destroy their family life by doing work. There is the sports addiction, there is the video games addiction, there is the internet addiction, And on the internet, there's certain things people do. There's gambling addiction. I trained in one of the hospitals, actually. And we come one day and internet is turned off and there are filters. And we asked why is that. They realized that people who have night shifts are addicted to certain websites. And everyone thought, oh man, how could you do this in the hospital? Do you know what websites people were most addicted to? Gambling websites. It was a shock. I didn't know that existed, actually. So it is a serious problem that I can tell you does not spare any segment in the community. The old, the young, the male, the female, Muslims and non-Muslims. I'm going to give you this shocker, actually. Preliminary studies show in a college, average college, we don't want to talk conservative versus non-conservative, but if you pick a random college, what's the average use of a drug within the last year for college kids? Anyone would give a guess? Percentage-wise. What? It's about 65%. That's for non-Muslims. How about Muslims? 60%. Yeah. Having illegitimate relationship with the other gender. Non-Muslims is right, 70 to 75%. Muslims, 55%. This is very serious. I had one of my kids goes to a certain college, and I was asking her why she was not so active in the MSA, the Muslim Student Association, because she told me she had a dispute with the vice president about what that vice president drinks alcohol regularly. I said, I'm not going to be involved with that MSA. This is very serious. Why is that? So after we spoke about the definition of addiction, how does addiction come? Brother Habib has made my job very easy, by the way. He spoke literally about everything I wanted to provide you with in order to get to absorb and digest this lecture. We are all subject to tribulations, to test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From prophets, to their lineage, to us, and truly, the risk factors for addiction, 50% is genetic. There is nothing you can do about it. But even though you might have the genes that make you likely to be addicted, unless the environmental factors are there, you won't be addicted. And sometimes even if you don't have the genes, and you have the right environment, meaning what's the right environment? The wrong crowd, basically, the wrong companionship, of course you'll be addicted. And if you ask addicts from tobacco to alcohol, how do they get into it? Just try this. At a party, the peer pressure. Okay? So the interaction between the genetic familial predisposition, the environment factors, produces addiction. Next slide, please. And it is very important to realize what's the highest segment of addiction. It's our youngest age. That shows you the peak, actually, which is in their time that they need to be educated, to acquire skills, to increase their knowledge. This is when that's the problem. You see from 12 and up. By the way, majority of addicts, they will tell you, it doesn't matter what they tell you, but it's been proven that their exposure to the chemical or to the behavior started before the age of 17. And this is why don't ever say my kid is still young. They're never young for this. I've known a person who's like their kids became addicts. You know why? Because they used to share cocaine with them when they were 7 and 8 years old. That's a disaster. Why that age is the highest age that is predisposed for addiction? Next slide. Because the brain matures gradually. And as you can see to your left, the more blue you have in the brain, the more maturity. That blue is not completely in the brain till you're into your 20s, actually. Most recent research says, like, it's still mature till you're 25 and 26. So that age of drinking and having marijuana at 21 doesn't work anymore. I think in New York City, actually, they did a smart thing. They raised it to 25 or 26. Yes, because that's scientific. Mayors, that's a task for you. We need to raise that age. Because the brain is still not mature. What does that mean? The decisions a child makes are not mature decisions. Why? They lack that capacity. Kids, when you're 14 and 15, and you think you're smarter than your parents, please take the slide and put it above your head and read it every day before you go to sleep. No, your parents know better. You know a lot, but you still need help. And I hope that a lot of people do not damage that blue, which is the maturity, by bad behavior, which is going to be reflected in the next slide. If you look at the heart muscle that's at the bottom, the red color meaning it's healthy, it's taking, nutrients, sugar, that's metabolism. A heart that has been what we call infarcted loses that metabolism. It's a blue. Same thing to the brain. If you look to the left, you see that colorful line, yellowish, meaning it's a healthy brain. On the left, you lose, and it becomes darker. What does that mean? It is affected. The brain is not as healthy. So there is real physiologic, chemical, material change in an addicted brain. And this is why, my brothers and sisters, if you don't take anything from this lecture but this statement, I'm happy. Addiction is not a moral failure. It is a true brain disease now that we're dealing with. And we have to address it as such. And we have to give hope to people that yes, like any other disease, it can be cured. Yes, it is started by someone putting their foot on the wrong path, but it's still hopeful that they can recover from it as any disease, because we have evidence now. This is not my theory. This is very credible research that's proven it. So, how does addiction affect the brain? The nerve cells, which we call them neurons, communicate and talk to each other. That language is the neurotransmitters, the chemicals. Next. The chemicals. So what are the main two chemicals that they transmit? What's the language, the chemical language between the nerve cells? There are two chemicals. The serotonin and the dopamine. You have to know this. I'm sorry, Sheikh. This is important. Everyone has to know this. Because most of Americans are on SSRI, serotonin reuptake inhibitor for depression and anxiety, right? Serotonin is the chemical that provides stability. That's the happiness, that is the self-esteem, no depression, no anxiety. When you have decreased serotonin, you get depressed, you get anxious, you get so many things. So that's the stability chemical. The other one is the dopamine, and this is your homework to remember. Before you go to bed, just say it 10 times. Dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. It is really important. You're going to live with this for the rest of your life. Dopamine is the chemical for the reward and the pleasure. When you eat chocolate, what happens? You get a surge of dopamine. When you see a picture that pleases you, you get a surge of dopamine. When you kill your kid, good job. They get a surge of dopamine. What did Facebook do just recently? What did Mark Zuckerberg do? They're going to change the Facebook, right? Block the likes and the follows, right? Do you know what he's trying to do? Block dopamine. Each like you have in your Facebook gives you a dopamine surge. Each follower gives you a dopamine surge. This is why Allah wants you to do things for Him, not for the dopamine surge. This is why the egostatic, the status, the Prophet ﷺ, there is nothing worse to the faith of a believer than two things. And he gave the example of a hungry wolf that has been released, or two wolves that have been released after sheep. What are these two hungry wolves? He said, the person's concern over wealth and status. It's dopamine. What's my account number today? What's my stock's value? It's important to strive for good, but do not make your self-worth and self-esteem is that chemical. How many followers do I have, and how many likes do I have, and how many fans do I have? That is not applause, that is not sincerity. So, any stimulus that we acquire from the environment goes to something we call the pleasure center, and it's mediated through dopamine. And again, this is a term that everyone has to be familiar with. This is not advanced science anymore. Okay? This is just like, saying I'm buying Advil over the counter. Now everyone's feeling dopamine. When you eat a chocolate, now you're going to watch your dopamine go up. Okay? Next. So what happens if a person seeks that dopamine surge, they feel what we call high. They feel the pleasure, right? You introduce that same stimulus again, and it doesn't do it. Whether it's a good job, whether it's a trophy, whether it's whatever, it doesn't do it. So we develop what we call tolerance. We're not sensitive anymore. So what do? We have to get more. This is why the Prophet ﷺ said, a person is never content. If they get a whole valley filled with gold, they would wish for what? 2. It's never enough. And he said that nothing fills his mouth but the dirt. So how do you do this? You have to discipline yourself. You have to train yourself how to be content. You have to teach yourself not to get in a habit before it starts. The scholars have said the best habit for a person is what? What's the best habit a person can have? Is having no habits. That's the best habit. And make it a challenge for yourself that you always train your dopamine path. I cannot be a slave for the dopamine surges. Whether it's shopping, whether it's coffee, whether it's seeing this image or that image, whether doing this or that, your heart has to be content with its connection to the Lord. There's a very nice slide actually I missed to put in this presentation, but that's a reason for you to go to our website and look at our article, Chemistry of Happiness. Actually, meditation and prayers do the exact opposite in the brain and actually make it stable and increases the dopamine and serotonin. And I'm finishing in 2 minutes, right?
No, I'm just doubting.
Okay. I feel safer all of a sudden now. I was nervous till you came behind me. So, what happens with an addicted brain, they become dopamine bankrupt. Next. And what happens If they recover, they abstain and they go back on the path of recovery. And this is what Allah puts you through every month of Ramadan to reset your brain. It actually recovers and the dopamine goes back. Unfortunately, it's never back to normal 100%, but it's close. That depends on so many factors. How long the addiction has been, the genetic influence, many other environmental influence. To summarize, addiction pathophysiology is the same, whether it's shopping, gambling, work, tech addiction, or drug addiction. It results in the same changes in the brain. It is a disease, and we're going to talk more about the tech addiction. But the good news